This is Referee's World with Darren Cullum and Richard Mellin.
Hello again and welcome to the Referee's World podcast, which offers education and training for referees of all levels. My name's Darren Cullum and I'm a Level 5 referee affiliated with Somerset FA, and this is PGMO Observer and Southwest Pool Observer Coordinator, Richard Mellin.
Hi Darren.
Do you know what, since we've got the podcast up and running again, I've done very well when I announce your distinguished list of titles, don't I?
No, I don't know about distinguished. It's just title, and I prefer not to collect titles. But I suppose when I look back over my career, there have been numerous different titles.
Absolutely.
For whatever reason.
And don't knock it.
Yeah. Darryl,
Yes.
I've got a complaint to start with.
Oh, God,
I
here
want
we
to
go.
know why there's no arms on this chair that I'm swinging around on.
Oh, Richard, you're getting above yourself, dear boy. So, if you are a new listener, thanks very much for finding us. You're joining one of the 140 or so every day that are subscribing to the podcast. That's our latest stats for you, which is great. We've got listeners all over the world, and hopefully you will listen and learn from what we do. Now, the beauty of a podcast is the fact that you can listen in your own time. And when you do that, whether it be in the car, in the shower, we've got people that listen in the shower to us.
Too much information.
Too much information. Getting ready for going out or something. When you do that in your own time, you tend to absorb the information because it's a little bit of me time. It's 20 minutes. That's what we deliver. It's 20 minutes of me time. Although in the last episode, we went to 26.
Yeah.
And that was because of the role play. But there you go. We'll try and strap it back again.
Well, I never know what it sounds like because obviously being involved. So what I do is when I'm out walking, I just take my phone with me, download it, and I listen to the podcast on there. And it helps me pass that sort of 2-mile walk that I try and do every day.
There you go, see?
And just put, something towards those 10,000 steps a day.
Good work. It's good to see you're still keeping fit as well in your ripe old age.
I don't know about keeping fit.
So we got 20 minutes starting from now.
This is Referee's World with Darren Cullum and Richard Mellin.
And in this episode, we are going to talk pitch inspections. The weather is now slowly starting to creep in. But let's talk about pitch inspections, Rich.
Yeah. What made me think about this difficult topic? Difficult topic because it's a tough decision to make if you decide to abandon a game or not start a game because of playing conditions. And what prompted me was last night. We had excessive rain last night in Bridgewater, where I live. I don't know what it was like for you, Dad, but
wind, rain. It was like a storm that came out of nowhere because the weather forecast wasn't due to have weather like we had.
Was it? Is it the storm beginning with D?
Storm Darren.
Storm Darren. Yeah, exactly my point. You knew where I was going to come from there. Okay.
Yeah, so, it was pretty hellish.
That's what's prompted the thought behind this particular topic. And I think when we look at reasons that we need to do a pitch inspection, it's now time to bring this to our colleagues' attention, especially those that are going out there. And it may be the first time of having done a pitch inspection, maybe the first time that you've had to abandon a game, maybe the first time that you've not started a game because the conditions have not been safe.
So what are the conditions, start with, that people are first going to start asking the question, is the game on?
Hang on a minute, I'm the tutor here.
Oh, yeah,
You're the referee.
Sorry, that's a good point. Sorry, role reversal. Go on then, Rich. You asked that question to me.
Right, Dad, let me ping this across to you because you're the one that's going to be actively out there as soon as lockdown is finished. Now, for all the problems that we've had during 2020, we're going to stay positive here. We're going to keep on the right lines of what we need to do when certain things come towards us. Okay, so lockdown is going to finish. We're experiencing a very wet period here in autumn, November, and the pitches are going to be a little bit soft. They're going to be lush because they've not been played on. So there's not going to be much wear and tear on them at this moment because we haven't played much of the season, although let's say we played about 10 games. But it's the pitches that we're going to be talking about. So what conditions are you likely to expect, let's say, beginning of December?
Okay, beginning of December, we're going to be looking at rain, I would have thought, to make things a little bit sloshy. Temperatures will have dropped, so we're going to be looking at frost. And it has been it has been quite mild recently. And, you know, as I've said before, we're halfway through November and it has remained quite mild. So there is a potential with the temperatures. We had a cold spell last week, didn't we? So you're going to get that variation. So when you get a variation in temperatures like that, there's the potential for mist and fog as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We had 4 or 5 days mist and fog. And if you look at the timings during the day, forgetting about match day, look at the times during the day when the weather is not particularly nice. Early mornings up until what? 10:30, 11 o'clock? That's kickoff time.
Yeah.
That's kickoff time for youth football on a Saturday, and I'm talking locally here. I think it could be nationally. As regards kickoff times in the morning, 10:30, 11 o'clock for the juniors and that, and then for the men's adults, open age football starts at 2 o'clock, and some pitches are used for two games during the day. So consequently, you've got reason to consider a pitch inspection and why. Foggy, wet and frosty conditions.
Possibly snow, but at the moment, snow seems to arrive in March, doesn't it? February, March.
Careful.
Ooh.
Yeah, you're tempted now. Okay, so let's go and consider what you're going to be looking for. You're going out to do a game here in Taunton. What are you going to be looking for? We're doubtful. I'm the secretary. I've given you a phone call. Darren, can you come in and do a pitch inspection? I know it's only a couple of miles for you. If you need to, you know, we'll pay your expenses, but it's not normal because it's quite close proximity to the ground.
Well, we pretty much had a situation like this a couple of weeks ago because the weather was really bad. In fact, the whole of the UK was suffering quite a bit, wasn't it? And there was a lot of games that were called off because of the excessive rain that we'd had in the build-up to the weekend of football. And there was some debate as to whether certain games would go ahead. In fact, my Sunday Vets game was called off, but they managed to find another pitch to play on.
Explain, what do you mean vets game?
Vets game, veterans.
Local vet surgery playing each other, right?
Yeah, the local veterans. 35 and over, you then become a veteran in football, don't you?
I know a few of the veterans because they've asked me to referee, but I think it hurts the body to run around.
Not even Yoda can take up a veterans game. So we had a situation where I contacted the clubs on the Thursday. You know, where are we? I'm just planning ahead for the weekend. What do you think? And they've come back to me and said, we're going to, you know, judge it by ear. On the Saturday, I went back to them and said, okay, we've had excessive rain today. Certain games have been called off. How are we looking at the moment? Because some pitches do fare better than others. In fact, that game that you came to see me on, the windy game on the 3G pitch a couple of weeks ago, the weather that morning was absolutely atrocious. It was atrocious. And there were quite a few games called off then, but we actually had a good day in the end.
We did that day, yes, because what we were able to enjoy that day with the facilities, which is a 3G, 4G pitch. So, although I have heard of those games being called off as well because of flooding. You know, whilst, you know, it's, what's the word? Come on. Saturated pitch.
Saturated pitch, okay.
Yeah, you know, this was a 4G pitch that has got, say, problems with holding water, not retaining it and not
drainage
letting it flow away. So, you know, all these things come into consideration. So when you're going looking at a pitch that has had a lot of water, a lot of rain, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it?
Well, just going to look and see if there's any puddles anywhere. For example, your goal area is a prime example of that.
Prime example. And where does it go from the goal area? Where's the majority of play during a game?
During the game, probably midfield.
Yeah. So starting in the goal area.
Penalty area, and then
centre circle. Look at all the you know, regular played areas on the field of play, and also there is a reason to look out onto the let's call it. Can I show my age? Call it the wing.
The wing. Wow, that is an age thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah. Oh, what else do I call it? I mean, you know, I played right wing when I was a lad.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, you know. But, so the areas on the field of play, sometimes if you've got the availability of a groundsman to give you some help, he is the specialist in your eyes, or should be the specialist in your eyes, because he knows that pitch better than anybody else if he looks after it. And it may be a private pitch. It may be a council pitch. The council may not have groundsman available on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning for obvious reasons. That they're Monday to Friday workers, so that decision might have been taken out of your hand. So you have to be aware of that. But if you're called in to do a pitch inspection, go looking for things that are a threat to the game as regards it's not going to be the bounce is not going to be consistent. It might flop into puddles, or that's the ball. It may not bounce, etc., etc. And players are deceived by the bounce of the ball, where it just doesn't bounce at all. These are the things you've got to consider. You've had this, I think.
Yeah, you've got to consider the safety of the players as well.
Explain what you did on the day that you had to make that decision.
Well, on the day, I think the one that really springs to mind was the under-18s game that I was going to play between Taunton and Bridgewater. This is a good few years ago now. That was that Tuesday night when it was really cold. Yep. Do you remember when the temperature dropped rapidly?
It did.
Between 6:30 in the evening and 7:30. And just to recap what had happened, it was cold, it was a bit misty. We could play potentially when we arrived. We were conscious of the weather, but there was one small section towards the edge of the field of play, and it was quite a small section really that was getting hard, and you could tell that if anything was going to happen, it would happen on that bit that was hard and frosty. But anyway, we got there, we trained, we warmed up, and the pitch was fine. And then came out at 7:20, and I had to make a judgment call there. And at 7:20, I called the game off because in that hour, the temperature dropped so dramatically. We had to not only think about what it was like then, but we had to think, what was it going to be like in another hour's time? As the temperature continued to drop, and it was getting really hard really quickly. And I wasn't a particularly popular person on that night because it was a local derby game. All of them wanted to play. I wanted to play. But I had in my mind, well, if anything goes wrong, I'm to blame.
Taunton versus
Bridgewater
under 18s. There's going to be a couple hundred watching, even at under 18 level. And I think the way in which to look at it is don't start a game if you can't finish it.
That's exactly it.
That's a sound piece of advice in my opinion. Don't start a game unless you can finish it. I think it was about 6:30 when I don't think we knew that short-term forecast, because the drastic drop in temperature
and it was
from
drastic.
6:30 till within an hour, it was something like dropping from 9 degrees in temperature range down to almost freezing in an hour, and it just changed it so much and so quickly.
It had been fairly cold through the day anyway, and we'd had some frosty moments, so it was borderline. But on that particular, and that's probably the incident of calling off a game that I remember most. In fact, there's only probably one.
Let's expand a little bit on here, because you described it as a small patch on the field of play. How small was it?
I say a small patch
because I'm holding up my hands here, and that's about the size of a football. That's a small patch.
No. So
how big was the area that you were looking
in
at?
relation to the size of the rest of the field of play? If you can imagine where the halfway line is, and it was a stretch of about 10 to 15 feet. That was sheltered by the stand, 10 to 15 feet long and probably 2 feet wide, maybe. Yeah.
So it's progressing towards a bigger area as that next hour that you talked about. So if you get to half time and the frost is really starting to set in, it's one of those cases, as I said, if you started it, were you sure that you were going to finish it?
I wasn't entirely sure, and the temperature dictated what was going to happen on that game. Okay. Which didn't happen.
All right. I think the message is there. Is don't start a game unless you know you can finish it. But obviously conditions can, drastically change with a downpour, with these monsoon rains that we seem to be getting at times. But those are the things that you're looking. If you turn up at a game, say an hour before kickoff, and you go out there for a pitch inspection, what are you looking on your pitch inspection?
Well, some of the stuff that we've already discussed, what it's like to walk across. Yeah.
Do you wear your shoes, or do you take your pair of boots out?
No, I take my boots out.
I know some referees that wear their shoes just so they can emphasise the how slippery it is.
Right. Okay. Fair point. Fair point. I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't want to mess my shoes up.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, I'd walk across, maybe have a little bit of a kick on the floor just to see what it's feeling like underfoot. Maybe take a ball out with me, bounce it, just
soft,
kick it
bit
across.
Squidgy. Do you get there in time, that will allow you to clear any water that's lying in the goal mouths?
Yeah.
Get out there with a brush with the groundsman, the club people. Do yourself a favour, get your brownie points up.
A tack that I would take is if there is a little puddle in the goal area, for example, as long as we can clear that water and it remains clear, then we'll continue to play.
Sure.
But if it fills up again for whatever reason, the other thing, and this is obviously targeting, and I had one of these last week, actually. We had to stop play because dog poo.
Oh, right.
Dog poo.
Okay.
And it was not their home pitch, so they weren't to know. And, we could actually do an episode on dog poo on a playing field.
Are you sure?
Oh, well, we could certainly.
An episode on dog poo?
It's a bit of a random one.
Oh,
but no,
word.
There are some areas, some park football, where people still let their dogs go out there and poo and not clear it up. So we had a situation like that. We were 10 minutes into the game, and one of the defenders of the away team spotted it, and once we had to stop the game because
in the rural areas, and we are in one of those right on the edge of it, aren't we? In some cases, and we do go into the rural areas. There are some places where they allow sheep to graze on the football pitch, and I could name a couple of places near to Taunton where that happens, out Bagborough way. They just let the sheep graze, keep the grass down, don't have to get the mower out or anything like that. And the sheep do what the sheep do, foxes do what foxes do, rabbits do what rabbits do, etc., etc. So you can imagine some of the pitches are not pretty.
No.
And they do smell.
Anyway, how we've got onto that, I don't know.
No.
We're talking about pitch inspections here on the Referees World podcast. So,
Let's keep it relevant, shall we?
Go on, let's keep it relevant.
Yeah.
So we've done the hard frosty stuff. We've done the wet sloppy stuff. The mist is another one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, okay. Mist and fog.
Not
easy.
Obviously, you would change the colour of your ball depending on how misty and foggy it is.
Could you change the colour of the ball?
If you're able to.
Yeah.
You can get the bright orange ones, you can get the bright yellow ones, can't you?
In foggy conditions, what do you consider? What are your considerations as referee? And you're in the middle. Emphasise.
If I'm in the middle. What, standing in the middle, you mean? Or
whatever you do. What you're going to make an inspection here.
I would want to be fair. I would want to see, if I'm standing in the centre circle, I would want to be able to see quite clearly the goalkeeper, the goalposts from at both ends.
Fair enough.
I think that would give me a fairly good judge. If I can't see beyond the circle itself, then it's a no-brainer.
I'm gonna tease here, because if you were the goalkeeper at the one end of the pitch with that ball in your hands, and the goalkeeper at the other end cannot see that goalkeeper with the ball in his hands, but the goalkeeper punts the ball upfield.
Good shout.
What
actually.
Do you think? What do you think?
No, maybe I should do the inspection from one of the goal areas, just to make sure I could not the centre circle.
Okay, let's look at the various areas in which you're going to have a look at for the inspection, not just one point of on the field of play to make the judgment, because you've got to look for assistant referee signals. You've got to look to see if players can see across the field. The assistant referee can see across the field of play, and then we're talking about the goalkeeper to goalkeeper, box to box. Conditions, will challenge you. And if players are going to start moaning at you, why did we start? So what are the situations whereby you won't play the game? What would you decide to make a decision? We're not playing today, lads.
Well, again, whether or not the game is going to make it for the full 90 minutes.
But ref, give it 20 minutes, it might be all right.
Yeah, but in my experience, I've read the weather forecast, I've followed the conditions.
Good answer.
And my gut feeling is that this weather is not going to clear up.
And this time yesterday, the weather was still the same. 10:30 on a Sunday morning, 10:30 on a Saturday morning, 10:30 on a Friday morning were all the same conditions. Yeah. And the playing conditions did not change. So why should we play, on the Saturday or Sunday if it's doubtful?
Do you know what? Sometimes I think that calling a game off puts probably a bit more pressure on a referee than it does than giving a red card.
Oh, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
You are not a popular chap when you make the decision not to play a game or abandon the game. There's situations. I clearly remember abandoning a game down at Exeter in the Toolstation League at the time. And I was referee. It was one of my last games before I came off the list. It was very, very windy. It's open and it's right beside the airfield down at Exeter. And we played, and people will come back at me perhaps for this, but we played, and after 20 minutes, I just said, this is not playable. The wind was it was absolutely, it was like playing in a storm. And people will say, well, why did you start? But I watched the flight of the ball. The ball was being carried a lot further than what it normally would, and it wouldn't carry in the other direction. And players were being deceived by the flight of the ball, the bounce of the ball, the speed of the ball, and it made a lottery of the game. And I decided after 20 minutes, that's it, lads, we're not playing. Nobody, and I clearly remember the chairman of Cliss Rovers, who it was at the time, Cliss Rovers, he came up to me and said, Rich, fair decision. And that was Bob Chamberlain. Thanks, Bob, for your support.
There's one other one that I want to throw at you very quickly before we come to an end. You arrive at a game, and this happened to me shortly after I'd restarted my refereeing again this time round, and there were 2 sets of markings on the field of play.
Ooh.
And it was a lovely morning,
okay.
And both teams had arrived. They wanted to play. I wanted to play. I was keen to get on with it. But it wasn't clear. It wasn't clear at all. Should I have gone ahead with that game? And that was the Sunday game where I had a lot of jip, which I told you about.
Was it 2 sets of football?
Yeah, they had the pitch markings on top of the other pitch markings from the juniors games, the junior markings.
Okay, so the juniors play on like a 9v9.
Something like that, yeah. It was
smaller size field of play, isn't it?
Not clear at all.
Wow.
It was just not clear at all.
Wow.
And I pulled the captains over and I said, look, this is the situation. By rights, I shouldn't be playing this because, if a decision goes against you and I can't see clearly because of the line markings, then I shouldn't be playing this game.
That is a difficult shout, but a good talking point. For me, I have this approach that we need to play football, and if everybody is intent on playing this game, these are my conditions, lads. The penalty areas are slightly different in size for whatever reason. You've done something different, but arguably the penalty areas should be the same size on any field of play. Because if you're playing 9v9, 11v11, I don't think that the penalty area changes.
These markings were shocking.
The field of play, the width and the length of it, they may have differed for obvious reasons. But these are my conditions. If I make a mistake, etc., I will apologise. But please understand what my problems are. Try to get the players to buy in, and the managers, because they'll let you know if you get something wrong. Because, like I say, if you get things not running kindly for you, there will be all sorts of challenges and silly comments coming at you. So make a decision to play or not to play. But if you play, at least play under the conditions that we need to understand each other.
This is one that we can do an episode on, I feel, because I think there's a lot there to be said about it and the disadvantages of playing a game when the pitch is not properly marked out and how it can affect you as a referee and what it could do in turn for the whole goal. That's for another episode. Our time is up. Thanks very much for listening. It's the Referees World podcast. We'll be back with more very soon. Don't forget you can listen on iTunes or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, Apple Podcasts. You can listen on Spotify as well and on the website, which is refereesworld.co.uk.
The download is complete.
From grassroots to the World Cup. This is the Referees World podcast with Darren Cullum and Richard Mellin.